Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to jump right in. We have a fun little conversation today. We're going to talk blood sugar, glucose, and disease or health for that matter. Okay, so what happens when we eat carbohydrates, or food for that matter? Okay, so food is made up of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and micronutrients. However, through the refining process in our industrial food system, the majority of the foods we eat, especially those that come in a package, are made up of carbohydrates. So what we need to talk about is carbohydrate metabolism, what that does to the body from a physiological perspective and from a disease perspective. Okay, so we eat carbohydrates, which are typically chains of sugar, so what are known as polysaccharides. So when we digest carbohydrates, these polysaccharides are broken down into di and then monosaccharides. Monosaccharides, the most famous of which is glucose, and we know glucose by name because of blood glucose, blood sugar. So when we have a lot of glucose running through our bloodstream, our blood sugar goes up, and you know what happens? Our pancreas produces insulin. Insulin shoves that glucose into cells. Our cells produce energy, and we run, jump, leap, do all sorts of fun stuff, jumping jacks, burpees, whatnot. However, once our cells reach capacity, or so once our muscles and our liver are filled to the max of whatever glucose that we can store, that extra glucose is shuttled into our fat cells so they get bigger and more hungry, aka we gain weight. So the more carbs we eat, the more insulin that's produced and the more that we gain weight. Okay, so common conditions associated with carbohydrate consumption or carbohydrate metabolism, glucose metabolism, are hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia. And as the names indicate, they're opposite each other. One's low and one's high. Hypoglycemia is low blood sugar, and it is what happens when we eat a large amount of carbohydrates, say in a candy bar, a sugary beverage. So it spikes our blood sugar, our pancreas produces a bunch of insulin to shove that sugar into our cells, and then blood sugar drops dramatically, well below baseline, and then we have this really low blood sugar level, and that's associated with symptoms such as fatigue, irritability, and hunger. I mean, what do? Typically we self-correct. The body tells us to self-correct. Whenever we get hungry and that blood sugar is really low, we want to eat something in order to bring that blood sugar back up. Often it's sugar, candy, things that are going to produce the greatest effect the quickest. Okay, so the opposite of hypo or low glycemia is hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar, also known as prediabetes or diabetes. And so what happens in high blood sugar is after a while, after chronically high elevated blood sugars, the pancreas or insulin is not produced in adequate amounts, or the body becomes insensitive to insulin. Insulin is a hormone, of course, so the endocrine system becomes ineffective essentially. So what this causes is just high blood sugar levels for extended periods of time. And this can lead to several conditions, specifically ketoacidosis, which is a diabetic condition where our body is turning fats and proteins into glucose. It's a real dirty process that can burn the kidney, which actually can contribute to kidney disease, and then heart disease and neuropathy, so the loss of feeling in our extremities. So what we need to do is, obviously, minimize our consumption of carbohydrates, or choose carbohydrate consumption wisely. So we want to eat carbs in the forms that are wrapped in other nutrients, fiber, vitamins, minerals, proteins, and fats, or just avoid them completely, especially the highly refined varieties. So this image, it might be a little bit deceiving, but this gentleman is not smoking a cigar. He is actually eating a loaf of French bread. And so we can see down here on the left-hand side, this French bread causes a dramatic swing in blood sugar. The apple, which is sugar, we know this, that has a bunch of fruit sugar, produces a less dramatic swing in blood sugar. And then down here we have an avocado and a T-bone steak. These produce the mildest fluctuation in blood sugar. So what this tells me is that we need to eat fewer carbs, refined carbs specifically, in that loaf of bread. If we have a glucose metabolism disorder, fruit could be a tricky thing, but for all people, generally the recommendation is for blood sugar management to eat more fat and more protein. The diet we are observing right now on the 21-day Real Food Redux is just that. It's a very fat and protein heavy diet, light in carbs, and those carbs are starchy vegetables, so sweet potatoes, squashes, that are wrapped in other nutrients, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and that are paired nicely with protein and fat. So that's kind of blood sugar management 101. Fewer carbs, more protein, more fat. And that is going to helpfully contribute to us leaning out, so losing a little bit of weight, resensitizing our endocrine system so the pancreas can function a little bit better, or the insulin and the pancreas can function a little bit better. And it's going to contribute to better mood if we avoid hypoglycemia and just reduce our risk of disease that can come from hyperglycemia. All very important things in my opinion. We don't want to be sick like in the head or in the body, so we need to kind of limit our carbohydrate consumption to better manage our blood sugar. There are lots of ins and outs. This is kind of like I said, the 101 version of blood sugar management. There's a lot more that we can talk about, and maybe if you have questions, you can approach me one-on-one and we can go a little bit more in depth with whatever your concerns may be, but this is kind of just a very high level discussion on blood sugar. Really important stuff. I really encourage you to follow this kind of eating mandate throughout the program and afterwards for that matter. If you have any questions, come talk to me. I'm more than happy to help out any way that I can. Thanks, guys.